How can I build a great Minecraft survival base? That's a difficult question because there are loads of different types of bases and there are loads of different types of players. And in today's video, I want to try to help you recognize what you actually want in your base. And also, I hope that this video will inspire you to build the best base ever. To start off, I want to show you some of the bases of Season 1 of Blockheads, the SMP I'm a part of. And after that, we are going to cover what makes bases great and how you can make a great base. We are going to start with the first of 4 parts of today's video, which is style and theme. Now, what I mean by that is there needs to be kind of a theme in your base, a red line you can follow when you look at it, so you can immediately suss out what is what, and you don't have to guess what your base represents. Over here, I've got a few inspirational examples of topics or themes you can incorporate into your builds, and the color and building palettes normally attached to these bases, so blocks that work well in that kind of a base. And this first one is a medieval base, so we've got a castle in the backdrop. You can maybe also only build a castle if you're into that. We've got trees everywhere. Maybe you can build a forest. Maybe you can build smaller buildings everywhere, link them up with lovely paths. You can have small wooden bridges leading over rivers. And, I mean, big stone brick castles just really sell the medieval style. Marketplaces made out of stone and just small sheds with banners and wool also work. And I came up with 10 blocks for each palette. So these 10 blocks over here can work wonders with medieval builds. I'm personally not that good at it, so it was kind of tough for me to, especially in that scale, build something that represents this decently. But I think I got my point across with that. So medieval builds, definitely one of the most classical, but also one of the easiest styles to start with, I think, because there are so many materials that can work in that style. There are so many gray and brown blocks in Minecraft. You will be delighted and there will be something for you, definitely. Moving on, there's modern buildings. Probably the second most popular base design or just generally house designs out there. And they normally use a lot of quartz, stone brick, and a contrast color, which is normally some kind of darker block. So in the newer versions, deep slate, or often seen as cyan terracotta. And the build palettes for the next two are very similar, but I'm going to tell you why in just a bit when we get to the futuristic tower. But the modern building palette incorporates a lot of white, but also one contrast or two contrast colors sometimes. And I think blue and cyan colors can also work very well with this type of style. Then we've got futuristic, very similar to modern, but futuristic is more of a unrealistic approach to modern building because you've got these big spheres normally, you've got towers, you've got this double helix structure over here. And they normally look very great when you just put them into an ocean biome or on an island, and they work for themselves. There doesn't need to be much around them. They just look impressive, and they are normally a lot bigger than modern houses. Modern is, let's say, a scaled down version with geometric shapes of futuristic, but it's also looking a bit more realistic. Futuristic you can really experiment with, and you can break out of these preset house shapes and whatnot. This is kind of a wilder approach. Moving on, we've got a bit of a realistic style. It's tough to represent that, again, in smaller scale, but I think it turned out fine, and that is obviously a cityscape. But not just cities, this is supposed to be realistic builds. You can build nature as if mankind never touched it. You can build this sort of big cityscape or anything in between, like small towns. And I like to build cities that are modern but small. So this is probably nothing I would build with a huge road and just skyscrapers. Like this would probably be some sort of office building. But if you're into that, then go ahead. You can chuck all of your useful bits into the houses, interconnect them, and just build an impressive looking city base. And this is a palette you can use, but for city bases you've got a big advantage regarding the palette, because you can design every house in its own palette and the city will still work. You can have a mix of colors as long as it's not too wild, and you can integrate color next to color and it will work. You can have a red building next to a gray one, next to a tan one, and you can have older buildings next to newer buildings to show the development of the city. You can really go wild on the palette, which is what I really like on this. But you have to keep in mind that this is a big base you're going to build, and you're going to need lots of time. So if you are limited on time, I would not suggest building a city if you don't have a lot of free time. But if you do, go ahead. I can't wait to see your city. Moving on, we've got something for the princes and princesses. Is that a word? Is that the correct plural? Princesses? Whatever. The kings and princes of Minecraft. And this is obviously a castle to represent Disney and fantasy style. You can just go wild on like colorful and happy looking castles, or maybe if that's not too fit for you, you can build an enchanted forest with huge mushrooms and maybe some animals built out of blocks. And this, I think, can be something for everyone, because you can really design your own castle and you can build it in any way you want. And this is a color palette that I would probably use, because it's kind of vibrant with these wild nether wood colors, but it's also not like too contrasty. And white, I like white in castles. I think it looks nice. And these two combined, if you don't overdo it with the contrast colors, will make a decent looking castle. This one is a bit of a small display. And there is something very big missing, because this is supposed to be pirates and pirate islands. Treasure islands, treasure hunts, and pirate ships, everything regarding that department. But it was very difficult, and I tried for over 15 minutes to represent a small pirate ship, but it's not happening with one block in width. And, well, I only made a small island with a palm tree, which is also looking rather blocky, but it gets the point across. If you're into pirates and storytelling, maybe Pirates of the Caribbean and all of that good stuff, you can build a pirate-themed base with islands full of caves and danger, and maybe also treasure. You can have pirate ships, you can have, pirates. And you can dress up as a pirate, you can make yourself a pirate skin and all that good stuff. So if you are into that, this is one of the palettes I would suggest. Go wild, get yourself an ocean, and build yourself some piratey stuff. And this is something that's very fancy, but also tough to represent in this scale. So we've got a moon base. But not just the moon, you can obviously travel to any planet you like. Let's say you can build a Mars base or a Saturn base, whatever you like. Any planet you want to travel to, you can terraform the area, and you can build domes, you can build rocket ships, rocket launch pads. But it's going to be a massive task just because of the terraforming, and that's going to be the largest task, because you'll be grinding resources to cover your entire base's floor to then build upon. And I would really only recommend this again if you've got loads of time on your hand. So this is again one of those you gotta put a lot of effort in. Don't get me wrong, these are all bases you need to put effort in, but the city one, because of its pure size, and the moon base, because of all the terraforming you need to do, are definitely the two with the most cost of effort. And I would recommend them, but only if you got time on your hands, because otherwise you're gonna get frustrated because you're not done before the end of an SMP season, or you just burn out halfway done. I know it seems very easy to really fall for the details, and especially in a style like medieval, or with these castles, you can over detail and it's gonna look good. But keep in mind that every style only really works if you've got a certain amount of detail. For example, you can't really overdo the detail on big skyscrapers or on futuristic and modern builds. You gotta keep in mind what you decided as your theme for your build, and you gotta stick with that. Obviously, you can also combine topics, but keep in mind that they also have to fit. So let's say you can combine modern with futuristic, and that's gonna work. And you can combine futuristic or modern with a city, and it's gonna work because you're gonna have just a city of modern buildings. But I would not recommend, let's say, futuristic together with medieval. That's going to end up in a higgledy-piggledy mess. And believe me, you don't want that, because you're not gonna like your base. And if you keep in mind what you choose as your style and how the style defines and what defines the style, you're going to have a base you'll love. Obviously, I mean, it goes without saying, but there are more than these, what are they, like 5 or 6 styles. Choose whatever style you want and you feel comfortable with, and go from there. These are just inspirations I want to give you. And now let's move on to the second point, which is structure. Structure is kind of a two-sided point because it regards the outside and the design as well as the inside. So let's maybe start with the outside. And if you build, going back to what I was saying with the futuristic city, if you build a futuristic base and you want to build just one structure, that is going to work. That's going to be a classical futuristic base, a central big structure where everything is located, and that's going to work. For example, that is my Blockhead Season 1 base you saw in the intro. That was a big structure, and there were beacons all around it, right? But everything was kind of centered around that one build. So you gotta keep in mind, if you want a base to have one central building as the center of attention, or if you want smaller buildings, and if you are more into a cityscape-ish kind of feel, it doesn't have to be a city, but if you've got multiple buildings lined up and connected, you are going to have a different base design and a different feel when you walk through your base than with one central building. So think about what you want and lay out your base in a creative testing world first, or at least start doing that, because that's also what I did over in one testing world, which I'm going to show you real quick. This right here is the original testing world for my Blockhead Season 1 base. And it is built up to an extent where you can almost not recognize the base where it is today, and as it was in the intro, but you can see how I kind of went about creating it, and you can see where it started. So at first I laid out a big circle because I knew I wanted a circular shape, and if you've got a certain vision in mind, you should try and recreate what you've got in your mind in Minecraft. If you don't, then that's also fine. Just try to build something, and at some point you are going to get inspired. And if that not works and you're just building something that you personally don't like, go onto the internet and have a search for the style you want your base to be in, and you will find tons of inspiration. If not on YouTube, then on Google Images. Trust me, every style has been covered at some point, so do go over there and have a look at what other people build. Great, you've started building your base. You know you want, for example, a central structure in a futuristic style, and you have got a design in mind. You start building it, and you've got to a point where you can fill it up with great stuff. So that's where all of this comes in, the interior. The first thing you will need, and there's no two ways about it, is a storage room. If you don't have a storage room, what's going to happen is you are going to be burnt out at some point, because you're going to be running for materials every 2 seconds, because nothing is at a centralized place and everything is kind of everywhere. But if you have a storage room, it doesn't even have to be like a fancy redstone one. It just needs to be like a wall of chests. You're going to be such an organized Minecraft player, and trust me, the chance of you burning out is basically non-existent if you're organized. So get yourself a storage room, get everything sorted, and from there you can work on other projects. For example, a super smelter if you're into technical Minecraft. Or let's say small farms like sugarcane, wheat, melons and pumpkins. You can even build small generators for stone, basalt, or cobblestone. And once you've got all of that sorted out and filled in some area of your base, if it's fitting, obviously don't put that sort of stuff into a city. That's not going to look good. You gotta work with the basements and the inside of the buildings in a clever way to hide that. But if you're working with, let's say, a futuristic build where you've got a big tower, you can easily chuck it in there. No one's going to notice. And, I mean, if you're working with a medieval base, obviously, you're going to have small farms surrounded by an old stone fence, maybe, so you can hide your farms within the theme of the base. But once you've got stuff, you want to maybe trade with the villagers to get more useful stuff. For example, emeralds, which you can trade for gear or for other materials you need for building the actual base. Get yourself a villager trading hall and trade the stuff from your farms with the villagers to supply you with more materials for your base. This is going to be such a relief, because if you've got a block palette that doesn't require constant grind and you can get some of the stuff through these guys, you are going to be a lot more relieved. And you can just start building right away because you've got the materials on hand, or just one trade away. This is something I chucked in to represent other stuff in your base, because not everything needs to be highly technical and functional. You can also have some pretty stuff. For example, a mine. If you're building a medieval base, or if you're building a castle, you can have a path that leads to a big old mountain with a mine inside. And you can have a fancy decorated mine, which can be a fun project to work on the side. And if you're struggling for ideas to put inside the houses, for example, if you've got multiple buildings, I'm going to link you a video of mine which covers 50 plus ideas for Minecraft furniture. Look at all these lined up, and if you want an in-depth explanation of each of them, go and watch that one and come back to this one. Now that we've got all that covered, let's talk about location, because you don't want your base to be in an awkward place where it doesn't fit in with the surroundings. Let's have a look at a random seed and let's choose a good place for certain types of bases. What I already really like is that there is an ocean, because that leaves two possibilities. You can build a big medieval harbor. That's the first thing I think of, because you've got these mountains and you've got this taiga biome, and you can get rid of some of the forest, not everything, but some of it, so you still have the forest kind of going around your medieval town, and you can build up a small medieval town, maybe with a harbor and some ships. Talking about ships, you could also make a pirate's cove and a pirate's bay in this area. I don't know what it is, but futuristic bases look so good if they're just plopped into the middle of the ocean. If you just were to put a big futuristic tower right here, it would look great. Just an example and general rules of thumb: oceans are great for futuristic building, coasts are great for harbors, be it a medieval one or a more modern one in a cityscape. And with that being said, you can also terraform areas if you're not satisfied. And that's one thing I did with my current Blockheads Season 2 base. And we're going to have a look at the original seed and then what I did to it at this point in time. And I'm underwater now. This is looking so much different. Every tree has been cleared out. There's now a uniform surface, or a semi-uniform surface. I've plopped down an airport, some planes. I have also built my starter house right here. Then I continued to build the city in this direction. There's an old aqueduct that are kind of the remains of the ancient city. There are roads that are currently in the making, and a beach at the front. This is the coastline, and I mean, this was the coastline. About every tree has been replaced by either a house or a custom tree. And if you are maybe curious at this point how this base is going to turn out in the end, have a look at this playlist right here, which is my Blockhead Season 2 playlist. So you can see the transformation of the seed you just saw into this and into more in the future, because obviously the season is still ongoing and I can't wait to continue building this base. Now that being said, it's time for the last point of this video, after we've discussed that you need to envision and you need to kind of think about what you can do with the location. But once you've chosen a location, you've made a plan of what you want to build in a creative testing world, or at least you've got a decent idea, you've started to build and you've filled it up with great interior, then what's left? I mean, obviously the feel of your base is left. It's your home in Minecraft. Your base is your home, and you gotta make it your home. If you don't like it, then change it up. For example, this is my starter house. I at first did not like how my upper floor was looking, so that's why it's currently empty. There was a wall of chests right here. This was my starter storage, and there was some more right here, my bulk storage. But I thought that it's really not a good idea to have bulk storage and a lot of storage in my cozy little holiday shed, so I removed that and made a whole new storage room. So I can make lots of nice interior for this house and just have this as a cozy sort of holiday home. So all of my bulk storage is currently over below the airport, and that's what I mean. If you don't like something, change it up, replace stuff, unbuild stuff, destroy stuff, rebuild stuff. You are never really set once the blocks have been placed down, and you can always change it up. That's the beauty of this game. And if you always and constantly ask yourself the question, do I like being around my base? And you can answer that with yes, then you've made everything right. Now, with that being said, this video was pretty long, I think, and this video hopefully gave you a lot of inspiration and a lot of tips on how to make a good base. If it didn't, I'm sorry for wasting your time. Maybe another video of this sort can help you out, but I tried my own approach with these 4 major points, and if that helped you, I'm very happy, and I hope to see you in one of my other videos. Goodbye.